What's up, everybody? I'm going to take you through each and every game in NFL Week 1 and let you know who I think is going to win the game straight up and against the spread, again, for each of the 16 games in this week's slate. Let's start with, I think, my favorite game of the Week 1 slate with the Ravens and Bills taking on a AFC playoff rematch here. You look at the tail of tape here, especially from last season. Ravens dominate the Bills in so many different technical aspects, having a great run offense with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, of course, at quarterback. They've got an incredible defense, really great at stuffing the run, one of the better coverage grades in the NFL too. And that's actually the spot where the Bills falter a lot, is that defense, which is really the weak spot of this team. It gets overlooked a lot just because of how great Josh Allen had been last season in taking this offense to new heights. Now, granted, they are getting Trey White back on at cornerback, and they did draft a cornerback in the first round, but that's still a tough task for both those guys going up against this Ravens offense. I really like the Ravens to win this game, to win and cover here. I think they just have a better all-around roster, and honestly, I think they have a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson, although it is a very tight race. I think the run game here is going to be the big difference with the Ravens. They should be able to run the ball all over this bottom 5 ranked Bills run defense, and I don't think you can say the same thing about the vice versa matchup with the Bills being able to run on the Ravens. Again, defense is king here, but even offensively, I think the edge goes to the Ravens. The Bills have one of the biggest home field advantages in football, but I think they're going to start this season out with a loss. Talking about the Thursday night football game here with a little bit of line movement ahead of the Micah Parsons trade. Pre-Parsons trade, the Eagles were favored by 6.5 points. Now they're favored by 7.5 points. So a pretty big jump just for one player transferring, but it takes away one of the biggest advantages that the relative advantages that the Cowboys have in this league, and that is their pass rush, which ranked 4th overall last year. That's going to take a hit. This offense was pretty anemic last year. Granted, they were dealing with some injuries, but outside of CeeDee Lamb and the newly acquired George Pickens, this offense doesn't have a lot of firepower, especially in the run department. Offensive line, you're used to seeing a great unit here from the Cowboys, not so much anymore, and didn't do a ton to address it. Not a lot of talent at running back either right now, and that's going to be really tough against this secondary unit, this run defense for the Eagles that is just stifling. It's going to force the Cowboys to be very one-dimensional here in the pass game, relying on CeeDee Lamb and Pickens, and with a great coverage grade, the best coverage grade in all of football last year in the Eagles. I think the Cowboys are going to have a really hard time putting up points. You lose some cornerbacks like Darius Slay on the Eagles side of the football, but having Cooper DeJean, who stepped up immediately at that cornerback role, should help slow down CeeDee Lamb, and I think the Cowboys are going to have a tough time putting up points. Eagles shouldn't have that issue, as they have one of the best offensive lines and best running backs in Saquon Barkley, going up against the 30th ranked run defense last year, and now they're down Micah Parsons. I think the Eagles should run the ball all day over the Cowboys, lean on their great defense, stop the run, and eliminate the run really from the Cowboys being an option, and force Dak Prescott into a lot of situations where he's forced to pass on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down, where this top-graded pass rush defense should have its way as well. I like the Eagles to win here and cover this 7.5 point spread, thinking about like a 28 to 20 point game here. This is a really interesting game, as you got the Chiefs playing and the Chargers both playing a game in Brazil here, so neutral site, although it is charged as a Chargers home game, unfortunately, if you're an LA Chargers fan. This one's really intriguing, as you get, a 15-win season with the Chiefs going up against a playoff team in the Chargers. I think these two teams match up really well against each other. Both times these two teams played last year, both teams were held under 20 points in each occasions. So I think it's going to be a pretty tight game and a pretty low-scoring game. What concerns me for the Chiefs, you got a lot of question marks on offense with Isaiah Pacheco coming back from injury and not playing maybe as well as people had in their expectations. You got a little weakness in the interior offensive line after a couple guys departed this season. And in the past game, you don't have Rashee Rice now, who's on suspension, and then you get Hollywood Brown coming back from injuries. James Worthy coming his 2nd year at wide receiver, looking to have a little bit more of a piece of this offense. And this offense, again, a lot of questions, and Kelsey getting 1 year older, going up against a really great defense with the Chargers, who's right there with the Chiefs in terms of coverage grade, have a great run defense and an average pass rush, which probably will take a step down this year without Joey Bosa. I think what concerns me about the Chargers in this game is that they're very thin at wide receiver, with number two or second year wide receiver Lad McConkey being the de facto option. I think he should be neutralized with Trent McDuffie at cornerback for the Chiefs, one of the best all-pro cornerbacks in football, although there's some stiff competition there, but he certainly can make a case. That leaves the Chargers with very few reliable options to pass the ball to offensively. You've got a really young running back, a rookie running back in Omarion Hampton. While he is running behind a very solid offensive line led by Joe Alt, and a run-minded head coaching unit or just coaching unit with Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh, I think you could see some struggles in his career early, although he should soon get his feet underneath him. But that goes well for the Chiefs in the week one, taking away the Chargers pass game, utilizing the inexperience in the Chargers run game to their advantage, and then hopefully putting up some points here. I like the Chiefs to win this game, but I do like the Chargers at 3.5. I think they match up very well. They've held the Chiefs to under 20 points in the last two times they played them last season. I think if the Chiefs the Chargers can get that run game going, it's going to be an interesting story. For the Chiefs, it is all about using that 10th best run defense last year to slow down the run game and leaning on Trent McDuffie to slow down McConkey, and then I think the Chargers have a tough time scoring. Anticipating a pretty low scoring game here. If I had to put a number out there, I'd say Chiefs 20, Chargers 17. Before I go on, I'm going to say what I do every video. Please subscribe to the channel so you can keep getting great content like this. It means a lot to me. Like the video if you're enjoying it, and let me know in the comments what you're taking this week. Moving on to a divisional game here with the Bengals taking on the Browns here. You can see the worst offense in the league last year for Cleveland. I don't know if their answer is taking a step in the right direction at quarterback here with Joe Flacco, but they're doing what they can. Drafted 2 different quarterbacks in the NFL draft, still searching for an option, juxtaposed by the best passing offense in the NFL last year with the Bengals and Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. It's a little bit of a trap line here. I think, of course, the Bengals is my pick to win this game, given how great their offense is compared to the Browns. But I'm a little bit concerned here with, and I think everyone is, with the quality of the Bengals. One, pass blocking, not really giving enough time to Joe Burrow back there to hit his guys downfield, and also their defense, which has been the hindrance of this team for a while. You see the number 3 ranked pass rush unit there for the Browns. Really scary against one of the poorest pass blocking units for the Bengals. You've got Myles Garrett on the defensive line for the Browns, going to be running after him all day. The Browns also used their number 5 overall pick to get Mason Graham, a great D tackle out of Michigan. So that's going to put the pressure on Joe Burrow and the Bengals early. I would expect that the Bengals can win this game. I just don't know if their defense is going to be enough to let the Browns spread the Browns basically and cover here. I'm going to take the Bengals 27 and go Browns 22 and give you the cover for the Browns there. Here's a really interesting game that I think I'm going to disagree on with some people here with the Dolphins and the Colts. I think people are still viewing this Dolphins team the way they were 2 years ago now, where they were the high-flying, really high-production unit on offense with Tua, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, even Jonnu Smith to some extent, and Devon Achane. It seems, I'm going to go on the limb and say those days are behind them as these guys get a step slower, and this offense seems to be unraveling before our eyes. For the Colts, believe it or not, I think they took a step up at quarterback with Daniel Jones. I think they got a lot of talent on offense outside of the quarterback position. They got Tyler Warren with their first-round pick, tight end out of Penn State. I bet he makes the immediate impact in this offense. And running back Jonathan Taylor is as solid as they come and consistent, albeit he lacks a little bit of the home run ability you see in some of the other running backs that are taken higher than him in fantasy drafts. And that wide receiver, I think they have a really solid unit with a lot of depth with Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, and Adonai Mitchell. I think all those guys together give these guys a really good chance to beat a Miami team with a poor coverage grade and a team that's losing Jalen Ramsey at cornerback there. I think you get enough offensive production from the Colts and Daniel Jones where the Colts actually take this game and get a win in their season opener. Couple of 4-win teams here as the Patriots host the Raiders. I think the one shining spot that everyone keeps talking about for the Raiders is Brock Bowers. You get a little bit of Max Crosby on the other side of the football, but he's been outspoken about his unhappiness with the situation there and looking to get out of Las Vegas. And even when Crosby's on the defense, the pass rush is still 27th ranked, so not getting a lot of help there. Worst coverage unit in football last year and the second worst defense overall, according to PFF. Patriots defense wasn't much better, but still was better than that. You see two teams with some offensive woes, but I think the Patriots did more in the offseason to address those. They got Stephon Diggs. They brought in a lot of O-line help. They drafted Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. And getting some help there at running back. The Raiders are as well with John T coming from Boise State, but they are losing Devontae Adams there. I think the Patriots with much improved all around on both sides of the football in the offseason with a lot of money to spend, win this game here and cover. I think you see Drake May take a step up this year and perform with the draft capital that was spent on him. So Patriots here in a low-scoring game because these offenses and defenses are pretty poor. I expect to see some sloppy football out of the gate for both these teams under new head coaching. I'm going to go Patriots 23, Raiders 19 here. The worst team in football last year, the Tennessee Titans, are heading into Denver, facing one of the scariest defenses that I think could be constructed in a long time here. Denver really surprising 10 wins last year under rookie quarterback Bo Nix, and I think the big question on everyone's mind is, can he not only take a step up and become an even better quarterback and take this team to new heights, but for me, all I'm really asking in my expectations, if I'm a Broncos fan, is I don't want Bo Nix to take a step back and have a sophomore slump similar to what we saw with C.J. Stroud this last season. For me, I love the Broncos in this game to win. I think this is the biggest spread in week 1, but I really love them to cover 2. They're going to cover the 7, even 8-point spread in some books. This defense is going to be so stifling and so smothering that I'm going to be surprised if the Titans can muster up 2 touchdowns here. And to add insult to injury here, the Titans, it's not like they're playing with that great of a defense. You look 19th overall, 20th coverage grade, which is going to play in the Broncos' favor because their passing attack isn't necessarily one of the better ones in the NFL. I think they have a lot of depth issues at wide receiver, with Courtland Sutton being their number 1, and who isn't a true number 1, I would say, and plenty of teams. And then it falls off even quicker with Marvin Mims and then rookie Pat Bryant at wide receiver. I don't think it's going to be too big of an issue because I think they're going to have plenty of chances to score on offense here, again, with how great this defense is going to be, especially against an offense that really struggled in the Titans last year. And outside drafting Cam Ward, number 1 overall, didn't do too much to address that offense. I like the Broncos to win big here. I'm thinking something like 27-13 here. I think they blow the Titans out of the water in week 1 and show this team, 1, what Sean Payton has been capable of his whole career as a head coach, putting together a really solid unit, and 2, what this defense is going to do. I wouldn't be shocked if this defense outscores the Titans in week 1. I just really think so highly of it. And take a look at my other video if you really want to get into details of the moves that this Broncos team made this offseason, especially on the defensive side of the football. In this game, you got the battle of the big cats here with the Panthers taking on the Jaguars. I think it surprised a lot of people last year that the Panthers, with 5 wins, actually exceeded the Jaguars' win total, who only had 4 wins last season. Jaguars turned around and used their second overall pick to draft Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter, part-time wide receiver and part-time cornerback. I think that's going to be a great tandem for a long time there in Jacksonville with him and former first-round pick last year, Brian Thomas Jr., playing wide receiver with him. I think getting Liam Cohen, who had a lot of success as the offensive coordinator there in Tampa Bay, is going to take this offense to new heights. I think you're going to see a heavy dose of both these receivers when you're looking at a Panthers defense, which was dead last in the league last year, highlighted by a horrendous run defense and not much better coverage defense as well. I think you're going to see, with this poor rush grade for the Panthers too, you're going to give Trevor Lawrence a lot of time to find 2 of the most physically talented receivers in football here, again, with a new head coach, Liam Cohen, who just knows how to make offensive churn. He did the same thing and revived Baker's career in the Buccaneers. He even had a lot of help with Cooper Kupp and took that offense in LA to new heights as well when he was calling plays and a wide receiver coach over for the Rams. I'm thinking he does the same thing here with the Jaguars and utilizes these two young, great receivers, again, to take down the Panthers and get the ball rolling in the right direction in week one. I think you see a lot of points here. Again, two poor defenses, some great talent drafted in the first round on both sides with Tedoroy McMillan going to the Panthers, Chuba Hubbard and running back. But again, I like the Jaguars to win this game in a tight one here. I think I'd do something like 27-24 Jaguars win. Really interesting divisional matchup here is you've got the 49ers, who only won 6 games last year, taking on the Seahawks, who won 10 games, but a lot of change coming to them this season. I think injuries were a big story for both teams last year, but no greater storyline for any team than for the 49ers, who seem to be completely decimated with injuries on both sides of the football. They're getting a lot of guys back from injury. They lost a few guys in the free agency, and some significant guys in their defense. And I don't think this defense is going to come back to the dominant unit that you're used to seeing pre-49ers injuries, but they're still going to be solid, headlined by linebacker Fred Warner, and they still got Nick Bosa at DN, but they are losing a couple of key pieces in Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga, Charvarius Ward at cornerback. So I'd say above average defense, but not as prolific as you're used to seeing. But the real story is getting Christian McCaffrey back on offense, and I think that's really going to help this team out. But the big question is going to be more on the Seahawks end, getting new cornerback Sam Darnold and seeing what he's really made of, not having the same kind of weapons he had in Minnesota with the prolific season that he had. You got a couple great running backs in Seattle with Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker III. Great wide receiver in Jackson Smith and Jigba. They got Cooper Kupp in the slot. It's going to be a really tight game, I think, in this one. But I have to give the edge to the 49ers here, as I think they got the best player on both sides of the ball with Christian McCaffrey on offense and then Fred Warner on defense. I think it's going to be a really tight game here. And I actually do think the Seahawks, if I had to pick, I'd pick the Seahawks to cover here because I think there's a real chance they win this game with what they have. But I like more often than not the Niners winning here. So I'm going to go with the Niners to win, Seahawks to cover. And I'm going to go then I think something like Niners 23, Seahawks 21. You know, I mentioned the additional point that the Eagles got in spread once they didn't have to face Micah Parsons. The Lions got the equal and opposite detriment of that. They were once 1.5 point favorites, but are now 1.5 point underdogs, and are now 2.5 point underdogs as they have to face the undesirable task of going up against Micah Parsons on that defensive line as they travel to Green Bay. Lions had 15 wins last year, and the biggest changeup wasn't actually anyone on the field, but it was with play caller and offensive coordinator Ben Johnson now going to the Bears. The big question is, what is the offense going to look like in Detroit without Ben Johnson, with predominantly the same personnel? You know, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, and Jared Goff. So again, all the key pieces in offense still there, just no Ben Johnson. And then they get Aiden Hutchinson back on defense. For the Packers, they had 11 wins last year. They used their first-round pick on Matthew Golden. They most recently got Micah Parsons. They got a great pass-blocking unit. What I think you see for detriment and trouble you get in Green Bay is their run defense might be a problem. Pass coverage was really great last year, but they are losing their star cornerback, and so that's going to hurt that grade as well. Jair Alexander now playing ball with the Ravens, I believe. So I think in this game, even with Micah Parsons, I still like the Lions to win this game. It doesn't help the Lions, but I still like them to win. And again, I think it's because I think they're going to dominate the run game and use their really great coverage defense to stifle Jordan Love, who's been inconsistent at times in the more intermediate throwing range, less so in the deep ball, where it seems like he makes plays time after time. But I question some of his throws and consistency. I like the Lions here to win and subsequently to cover as they lean on the offensive prowess that they had and kind of repeat what they did last year. Now, I don't think they're going to match the cleverness and the trickery that Ben Johnson was able to create in the offense, but knowing that they're bringing back basically the entire personnel, all they really did was lose a couple key guys in that number 3 ranked run block unit. I think they're still going to be a great offensive line unit as a whole. And what I really think here is that, again, the Lions control the run game and use their really solid defense to beat the Packers here on the road. This game should prove to be a very fun one as you get two playoff caliber teams facing off in LA. The spread basically implies that these two teams are even. I think you're looking at a Houston Texans team that their real strength is the defense, and the Rams, whose real strength is the offense, kind of the unstoppable force and immovable object. But in this scenario, I think the offensive juggernaut that the Rams have should prove to be prevailing in this matchup. It's hard for me to think about a better two wide receiver running back combo than what the Rams have currently, with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams at wide receiver, and then Kyren Williams at running back. Again, running behind his fourth best run block unit as well. It seems like this team has all the pieces together, and with Matt Stafford at quarterback. All that this really poorly pass blocking unit needs to do is keep him healthy, and that's a big if. But coming into week one that Stafford's coming in at least as healthy as going to be all year, and I think that's the biggest advantage they have in this game, and something that they can hang their hat on, knowing that their team's coming in, especially with quarterback, healthy. If this game is being played in week 8 onwards, I'd be a little bit more nervous about Stafford and how he's able to hold up this season, but I think they have a tremendous advantage here, a relative advantage playing these guys week 1 because of the issues that Stafford's had in his health behind this poor pass blocking unit in LA. Now, I think you're going to see a lot of great defense from the Texans here, but again, I think the offensive juggernaut that the Rams have right now outshines that, and I like the Rams to win, but I would, if had to do it, I think this game's truly a coin flip. I like the Texans to cover this game. Again, thinking about the total here, I think that kind of falls into the 23-21 type range for the Rams to win and the Texans to cover here. Tight middle here, but if I had to pick someone to cover, it would be the Texans, because there's a very real chance they win this game as they get a really solid defense and a pretty solid wide receiver room with Nico Collins coming back from injury, Christian Kirk, and then rookie Jaden Higgins against, again, a subpar defense for the Rams highlighted by a poor coverage grade. There's a very real chance that C.J. Stroud peppers the ball to his receivers all day long and can put together a fourth quarter drive to beat the Rams here. So that's why I like the cover for the Texans, because they could win, but I am taking the Rams to win this game. This game's going to be a little tricky here. It's deceptive because you have the Pittsburgh Steelers coming off a 10-win season, and they got Aaron Rodgers. They made a lot of offseason moves, and they get T.J. Watt back. You got the Jets. They had 5 wins last year. They lost a lot of key guys like Devontae Adams, Morgan Moses at tackle, and Byron Smith. But yet you still find the Steelers should be favored by less than a field goal here. Really low scoring game, as you should have two solid defenses. Jets have all the names and talent on defense. They just didn't put it together last year. I think they're looking to change that around. They certainly are looking to change that around. I think they'll have success doing it. But I think the Steelers defense far and away outshines them. You have to love the Steelers here, just given their defense alone. Probably the only team that can even come close to rivaling what the Broncos are putting out there. Even with Garrett Wilson, Justin Fields, and Breece Hall, I have a hard time seeing this Jets offense move the needle against the Steelers with their defense. But on the flip side, I don't think the Steelers have that much talent on offense right now. Aaron Rodgers has not seemed to be the guy that he used to be ever since he left Green Bay. I think everyone, including myself, is questioning his ability to go out there and play quarterback. They lost George Pickens, but they did bring in DK Metcalf. Wide receivers a little thin outside of him. And then at running back, you're relying on more of a scat back, Jalen Warren, and then rookie running back Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. It's going to be a really low-scoring game here. I do like the Steelers to win simply because their defense. I think the defense poses an ability to put up points for them, and so that's why I like them to cover this spread too. I'm thinking really low-scoring game here with the Steelers covering. I'm going to go 2017 Steelers. This game should be just about the opposite of what I just described, with two pretty solid offenses looking up against each other against some pretty poor defenses. The Falcons here really relying on the run game much more than the Buccaneers, who rely much more on the pass game, but saw a resurgence in the run game last year with rookie Bucky Irving. I think the big question, much like the Lions for the Buccaneers, is going to be how does this offense look without offensive play caller Liam Cohen moving the chess pieces around for this offense. They do have some great talent at wide receiver with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Ibuka, who's just drafted out of Ohio State in the first round, again at wide receiver. And then with the great run blocking unit that they have in Atlanta, it's going to be a run fest all day for them. I think I do like here the Buccaneers because of their passing ability to move the ball downfield, even against a pretty good coverage grade with the Falcons. But hard to deny the talent that this Buccaneers team has on offense and how good Baker has looked since going there. I question Michael Penix Jr. at cornerback at this point. I may end up regretting that, but right now I want the proven quarterback and proven offense in Baker Mayfield as opposed to this Falcons team. Ultimately, every time really an NFC South matchup happens, but certainly these two teams last year, they were tight matchups, close games, and coin flips. And while I am picking the Buccaneers to win, I think it's a smart move to take the underdog here at home for the spread at plus 2.5. I think it's going to be a really tight game. Again, I think I am taking the Buccaneers to win, but I think the smartest move here is to take the Falcons and what I think is a true coin flip as the 2.5 point spread underdogs here. I think this game's going to go over in the total, and I think you're going to see something like 30-28 Buccaneers here. As, again, late game, fourth quarter drive, highlighted by Baker Mayfield and this wide receiver group in Tampa Bay. This is a game that I think it's a little deceptive too, because I think a lot of people look at this Giants team last year and write them off immediately, which is a little fair, but you see Malik Neighbors who's starting to bud as a true superstar wide receiver in this league, and you do bring in Russell Wilson at quarterback. I think that is going to make this game a little bit closer than people think as they look at a bottom 5 coverage unit and bottom 3 defense in the NFL last year in the Commanders. A lot of skepticism and criticism was masked by how great Jaden Daniels was in this offense last year, and it is a great offense, and they should put up enough points to beat the Giants, but I don't think they're going to cover because of a little bit of the divisional rivalry. And again, I think people are discounting the Giants a little bit too much and maybe even inflating the Commanders more than they should be based on their spectacular season with Jaden Daniels in his rookie attempt. I think, again, Commanders win this game. I'm picking the Giants to cover. It's +6. That it looks like something like I think the Commanders actually, their offense comes out a little bit sluggish. They only put up 24 points. And the Giants cover here, putting up 20 themselves. So Commanders 24, Giants 20. Which I think, honestly, is a relative win for the Giants coming out and maybe hanging with the Commanders on the road here. This is a game where I think the Cardinals far and away outshine the Saints, which isn't hard given the level of talent and depth the Saints have on their roster. Both teams have poor defenses, although the Saints, with one of the worst in the league last year, the real difference here comes down to offense, where you have the Saints. They've got Kamara, 1 year older. They got Chris Olave, who's concussion prone, but should be healthy and very talented coming into this week 1 game. But outside of that, really thin on offense. Poor offensive line, and certainly not going to give Spencer Rattler any time to throw the ball with the worst pass blocking unit in football. For the Cardinals, I think you see this offense take a step up this year as Marvin Harrison Jr. starts to bud in his sophomore season as a top 5 pick at wide receiver. James Conner has been great doing it all, running between the tackles and receiving out of the backfield. And I think you see a little bit more Trey Benson to help him out there too. And then Trey McBride, potentially the best tight end in the league here, really making this offense hum. They finally figured out their offensive line, led by Paris Johnson Jr. I think the Cardinals win here and smoke the Saints defense. I think you're going to see the Saints offense struggle under Rattler in this offensive line. I like the Cardinals a lot here. I think this game is going to be something like Cardinals 27, Saints 17. And then I think this is the last game on the slate here and the Monday night game when you get the Bears facing the Vikings. I think this one, in this matchup, you can throw out a lot of what you see here in the rankings of last season. I think it's about where you think these teams are going to go in the future, but also how they're going to look under the new regimes with Ben Johnson calling plays for the Bears and being head coach, and then J.J. McCarthy taking over the Sam Darnold role. For me, I think you had to take the Vikings here to win the game and cover, as much as I hate to say it. And what it comes down to is everything on the Vikings is proven. The defense under Brian Flores, the offensive star power outside of quarterback. The only question mark in this Vikings team right now is quarterback. And it's a big question, about as big as they come, but that's the only thing that really needs to work on this team, for this Vikings team, to beat the Bears. For the Bears, everything is in question. The pass blocking unit, whether Caleb Williams can perform and really live up to the #1 overall pick that he's had. This defense has been maybe average at best. I think this 13th ranked PFF grade is deceiving. They've had a lot of injuries. The only thing you can really hang your head on is this coverage unit led by Jalen Johnson. But offensively, a ton of question marks that you have to believe that Ben Johnson comes in and cleans all of that up in week 1. It's very possible that he does. There is no lack of talent for this Bears offense, but I am going to believe it once I see it. And I'm going to take the Vikings here on the road to win and cover against the Bears. I really hope Ben Johnson comes in and uses all this talent from day one that the Bears have to fix all the holes that you've been seeing. But you can only do so much as a head coach, and I want to see and need to see Caleb Williams take a step up, make the right decisions, manage the pocket a little bit better before I take them here against the Vikings that have everything figured out from head coach to everything on defense. The last thing they need to fit all the pieces of the puzzle together is J.J. McCarthy to figure it out to at least some extent to win this game, and I think that's the difference between these two teams. There are a lot fewer questions for the Vikings, and that's why I'm taking them in this game to win and cover. If I had to throw a score out there, I'm going to say it's going to be a tough one. I think 24-21 Vikings. That's it for the video. I know it's quick picks, but with 16 games, even taking a couple minutes per game adds up. Appreciate you guys watching the video, and we will see you in week 2.